There are a lot of new opportunities out there in health tech, in biotech. Why did you decide to double down on modern health?
We just love well, I would say a couple of things. First of all, I'll back up a bit. One of the great things about having run Twitter at scale with over 4,000 employees is you get to see where, after you leave, some of your most amazing employees go. And one of Adam Bain's go-to-market leaders and one of the great leaders on the product team at Twitter both ended up at Modern Health. So when that happened, we realized we needed to get to know the company. I would say, secondly, there's just been a massive trend toward adding mental health services as one of the pillars of corporate benefits programs, alongside physical health, obviously, dental and vision. But like physical health, more and more realization that overall wellness and stress can be such a hit on employee productivity. And it's not just you're sick or you're fine. There's a whole spectrum of health and wellness. So we just have seen, and we saw at Twitter, and we've seen from other companies that we work with, this need to extend employee benefits programs to mental health services, including everything from full-on one-on-one sessions with therapists to group coaching sessions and other kinds of software modules that services can provide. And Modern Health is a company that provides the entire spectrum of those services. We love the team, as I just mentioned. We had two of our Twitter leaders there, and the combination of the team, their accelerating growth, and the secular trend in the industry made it a no-brainer for us.
The pandemic is one thing, but, we're expecting this work from home period to extend for some people and some companies indefinitely. I mean, Jack Dorsey has told employees that they can work from home forever. I mean, how concerned are you going forward about making sure that employees have the support they need, given, the fact that many of them are going to have been staring at the same four walls and the same screen for at least the last 9 months, if not years to come?
Yeah, look, I think that even you just said it, when we come out of the pandemic, there's certainly been a realization that you can be productive from anywhere for lots of kinds of jobs. And that's not going to go away completely. We're not going to see 100% of people returning to offices. And I think, look, you unless you were on another planet, you can realize the stress that everyone's been under the last 9-10 months. Lack of human connection, not just staring at the same four walls, but homeschooling, the stress of trying to be a parent who's schooling your kids at home while also having a job. It's just added to compounded the usual stress of working really hard at a fast-growing company and dealing with the day-to-day grind of your job. Look at the amount of productivity that's lost in sick days and leaves of absence and all that others, and burnout that every company has experienced. So we just think that this is COVID has only accelerated this, the demand for the services, the stress that employees are under, and I don't think that goes away when the pandemic is behind us.
Now, you've been investing for a few years now since leaving Twitter, and I'm curious, going into 2021 in this unprecedented environment, where are you placing your bets at O1?
Remarkably enough, considering that Adam and I, built what I guess many would consider a consumer platform, Twitter, even though the business was really B2B, it's us selling to advertisers and other businesses. We're sort of agnostic to where we invest in technology. We're probably not doing a lot in hardware because we don't understand supply chains that well. And one of the things Adam and I really try to focus on is going into places and investing where we can help mitigate execution risk and help with scaling. But in the software space, we have tended to invest more in enterprise SaaS companies. Those just happen to be the kinds of companies that we've come across and loved. Maybe it's the fact that we have we know more about consumer tech, so we know the right questions to ask and find reasons to say no to more consumer tech companies. But we've ended up investing more in enterprise SaaS without really a preference for it. And that'll probably continue. There's so much momentum in the space. I think some people have thought the party is over in enterprise SaaS, but there's so many other problems that need to be solved. Every company in the world is becoming a technology company or needs to become a technology company. So the total addressable market for some of these enterprise SaaS companies is huge. I think if you had looked at companies like Twilio, Okta, et cetera, maybe 5 years ago, you would have said, well, sure, they're a couple $1 billion companies, but they can never be 10 or $20 billion companies. Well, now they're 10 and $20 billion companies and growing and growing and growing. These kinds of companies can grow forever. They're snowballs rolling down a hill, and we love them.
So let's talk about that. Wish is poised to go public tomorrow. The e-commerce retailer, they just priced their IPO $24 a share at the top of the range. I'm sure you've been following Airbnb and DoorDash. Airbnb and DoorDash both pulling back over the last few days after their exuberant receptions on Wall Street. Even Brian Chesky was at a loss for words when we told him that the shares had doubled at the opening. Are these valuations in line with potential, or are they insane?
Yeah, Brian's experience gave me PTSD. I had the same reaction the morning of our IPO. Look, I think that the markets, are private and public, are underpricing risk. Meaning, valuations are high, and I say that because you have the sort of hard Brexit right around the corner. What looks like that's going to be really, really rough for the UK, meaning no deal Brexit. The political strife in the US, the ongoing political strife in the US, this K-shaped recovery with, depending on what the next stimulus package is, lots of benefits running out, lots of evictions from landlords right around the corner in January. So the market seems to be ignoring all that, which I think is weird, but it's been that way for a number of years now. Having said all that, we've been talking about valuations being too high for 10 years now almost. I remember, you can go back, give you just a couple examples. When Figma raised their Series B, the WYSIWYG design platform, for those unfamiliar with it, a couple of years ago, people thought the valuation was crazy based on the annualized run rate. And probably, any external observer who didn't know the business or understand the future of design would have looked at that and said those investors were insane. Well, that now looks cheap. So I think that those kinds of things happen. And then the experience with one or two of them makes people not want to miss out on the next one. And they pile into the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh company at big numbers, and they're not all going to work out. So I think overall, the markets, public and private, are underpricing risk, but they've been doing it for a while and no one's gotten hurt by it. So it's going to continue to happen until there's a big 20 to 25% correction.
Okay, so do you see a correction coming? I mean, are you telling your entrepreneurs, like, raise now while you can?
No, because
is this going to go on for a few years?
Well, I'll tell you precisely what we tell them. Sort of the same thing we told them I would say a couple weeks into March during the shelter in place. So look, make sure you've got an operating plan that you could move to in the immediate future. That's a 25% cut to OpEx on a, what if there's a massive externality that comes alongside this pandemic that tells us everything's shutting down, budgets are shutting down. Make sure you've got that plan in place so that if something like that happens, you're ready to move to it instantly. Obviously, a lot of companies found themselves in the position where they had to move to it instantly, Airbnb being one of them. And of course, as we all know, in hindsight, they came right back and grew faster than ever. So what we've told CEOs and CFOs is put a plan in place, put a what-if plan in place. That's if we need to cut OpEx by 25% going forward, and make sure we've got enough runway for X months, X years. What does that look like? And let's be able to move to it quickly and nimbly if that happens. But I think it's hard to just say, do it now, everything's great. As I've just mentioned, for 4 years, it seemed like the market is underpriced risk, and here we are higher than ever.
Now, scrutiny is rising on big tech, and the FTC just sued Facebook, suggesting Instagram and WhatsApp that those acquisitions should be unwound. As somebody who competed against Facebook for a very long time, what do you think? Is Facebook too powerful? Is it anti-competitive? Is a breakup in order?
I had the most awesome wavy set of hair before I started competing against Mark at Facebook. I think that all the tech companies, I won't just comment on one of them. I think that all the tech companies are under increasing regulatory scrutiny. I think that's going to be a global reality for all of them. The challenge for these companies is they don't really cooperate. There might be some cooperation between teams, but because they compete so directly and generally and so fiercely, and in many cases for talent, for customers, et cetera, they just don't get together and share information or work together and collaborate like competitors in some other industries do, where there's an industry lobby, what have you. So the challenge for these companies is they're kind of going in one against many on all these, against all these governments, and not collaborating. And that's going to result in making it, I think, easier for regulators to come after them. The companies won't know necessarily what each other are saying, what each other are doing. They're probably saying things like, you shouldn't come after me for anti-competitive practices. Here's a list of the 9 things, Apple or Google or Twitter is doing. So I just think that's going to not serve them well, and going to be a problem for the industry in general, and going to result in many of them being more strictly regulated than we're even talking about today.
Now, President Trump has spent much of his time in office using Twitter, exhausting Twitter employees, I'm sure, accusing the company of anti-conservative bias, arguing for Section 230 to come to an end. What is your outlook for Twitter under a Biden administration? Does the drama die down when he leaves office?
The drama never dies down at Twitter. That's the reality. Look, it'll just be, every user of the platform has 10 great ideas that are obvious to that user that Twitter should do to quote unquote fix Twitter. And they usually include silencing voices that think things differently than they do, or engaging in the prohibition of speech that they think should be prohibited. And the company has to balance those hundreds of millions of strong points of view about what those 10 obvious things are that each and every individual user thinks need to be done immediately. So it's probably not gonna make life just a bowl of cherries over there, because there's always gonna be some next issue that the company has to deal with that we don't know about today. And it will be a new kind of issue that the industry hasn't had to think about before, and will struggle with. That just happened sort of every couple months when I was running Twitter, and that was before Donald Trump was even running for president. So, probably it's a little easier on them, because you won't have someone who's got them directly in their sights, who's shouting at them every day. But the drama won't go away, and there will be some other set of issues that come up that the company will have to deal with, and it will continue on a regular basis, like for the foreseeable future.